Yeah, Philip Cortanazen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Copivian, and welcome back to me ranking my top 10 favorite episodes of Supernatural series. Today, we are doing Season 2, number 10 episode, In My Time of Dying. Right off the bat, after a big car crash in Season 1's finale, that left Dean in a coma, and John and Sam to try and figure out how to help Dean. Dean wandering the corridors of the hospital and running into Tessa, the Reaper, who would become a pretty big part of Dean's story. It was kind of an emotional episode, but especially since it's the episode where John dies and leaves Sam and Dean by themselves for pretty much the rest of the series, except for the season finale of Season 2. He does come back, and I will talk about that later. But it was such a kind of a heartbreaking episode because you wanted to see the trio to go on and face Yellow Eyes one more time, but it was not to be. And John ends up making a deal to save Dean, and it was just such a well put together episode to start off, to kick off this second season, and it was definitely one of those episodes that left the Supernatural fandom wondering what is going to happen next. Number 9, Born Under a Bad Sign. What happens when Sam Winchester goes bad? Will Dean kill Sam, or will he try and save him? Well, only if he can't save him will he have to kill him. And that is the push for Dean in this episode. And it's also interesting to see how Sam is looked at under the microscope of the villain side of things. When Sam goes to Bobby, because he's going through the episode killing off hunters, and he ends up going to Joe, and then Bobby next, and Dean just stays on his trail trying to figure out how can we help him, how can we save him. Turns out it's Meg that's possessing Sam, thanks to a little insignia that is keeping Meg inside of Sam. Basically, she trapped herself inside of Sam's body with that insignia, which they must burn off of, or at least torch on Sam to break the seal, causing Meg to be vomited out of Sam. Number 8, Night Shifter. Well, I talked about Skin in my first episode. This one was pretty much Shapeshifter version 2. And it was so much fun to see Sam and Dean get locked in a bank with a shapeshifter that they didn't know who it was going to be next, where it was going to strike from, who and how they were going to get out of this. And then the introduction of Agent Henriksen is now on their trails. Everything in this episode just felt like there's no possible way they're going to squeeze themselves out of this. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this was early yet in Supernatural. We hadn't seen Sam and Dean in this kind of trouble yet, where they're trapped inside with a monster. You got agents, FBI agents, and police surrounding the building. And then you got Ronald with the laser eyes, right? That character was so funny, but it was such a needed character, kind of that conspiracy theorist form of character, and he brought so much to the episode. But in the end, of course, Sam and Dean do get out of it in one of the best of ways possible, switching SWAT uniforms with two of the SWAT guys and getting back to the Impala in time, and it would continue with Henriksen for until season 3. Number 7, Hollywood Babylon. So we want to get into meta stuff, huh? And the internet loves meta stuff, right? Well, this was meta beyond belief at this point in time. Not only in Supernatural, but in general in movies or TV. It was so funny to see how they created this story and poked fun at the producers and the actors and PAs and just everything that goes onto a TV set or a movie set, and everyone involved, the team that makes these things possible for us to partake in as viewers and either say we love it, we hate it, or we're right here. This was such a great and fun episode. They really actually had to blend in order to figure out what was going on and how to deal with it. Turns out, wasn't a vengeful spirit at all. It was just someone using ghosts to his own advantage because he didn't like the way that his screenwrite or his script was being torn apart to create different things and different ideas on a less than stellar film. And I guess Dean's one hell of a PA. Not that I would know. Number 6, Crossroad Blues. As Dean's plight and coming to terms with John Winchester's passing and or killing wasn't hard enough for him to deal with in season 2, this one takes it even further. And it was, I love the addition of Robert Johnson's myth to this fictional story as well, because it takes the Hellhound story and it takes a lot of his music, which did have a lot of occult lyrics to it. It takes the real side and it adds so much to this story. I do like Robert Johnson's music. It is very good blues music, and if you haven't heard it, search it out, especially if you're a blues fan. If the introduction of the Crossroads and the Crossroad Demon would bring Dean to the conclusion that John clearly had to have made a deal in order for him to still be there, and to see how that struggle plays into Dean's character and how Jensen utilized that in his acting abilities was amazing at this point in time in Supernatural. It really made you feel for Dean and how he felt so guilty that John died for him. Number 5, Heart. Heart was another tough episode for early Supernatural seasons, because this was also the one where get introduced to werewolves in Supernatural's lore. And Madison, played by Emmanuel Vaugier, plays Madison in this episode, and Sam is the one who falls madly in love with her. And it's really the first girl that he kind of has a very strong attraction to outside of Jessica, and actually gets into a physical relationship with her. But unfortunately, it all comes crashing down around him when it is discovered that she is the werewolf that they are essentially hunting. And it brings so much to the surface of Sam, and it brings even more struggle between the brothers, and you start to see kind of a fraying going on between Dean and Sam, but also you still see how they're able to come together after this heartbreaking loss and this heartbreaking defeat. It's not a victory episode for Sam or Dean. They don't kill the monster and walk off in, we did it, we got him. No, this is one where they struggled with it. They struggled with the choice they had to make, especially Sam, who ends up having to do the deed of offing Madison. And such a tough episode, and to see how much emotion was poured into that final scene between Jared and Jensen. I mean, it just shows how great of an actors those two guys are, and especially at that point, how great they were getting to that point. It's not easy to always get emotional in scenes like that, but those two guys, they did it great. Number 4, everybody loves a clown. What's wrong, Sam? You seem to be a little scared of clowns. What's wrong? Don't like the Joker either? I love this episode purely for the fact of the monster wasn't visible to the eye, except for when he's in his human form. Other than that, it's a character that is invisible. They can't see him. Sam and Dean have to utilize different ways to do it, and also the place where the final showdown happens and the offing of the monster also occurs is all very fascinating and cool. It happens inside of the haunted house, and it was such a cool way, and how it just, this invisible creature, you see it as it fades out at the end of the episode. And again, Sam trying to get Dean to talk about John Winchester and the emotional push and pull there. And you got, I believe it's the first time we get to see Ellen and Joe that in the Supernatural series. Number 3, Croatoan. I love this episode so much because it brought in it brought in a real thing from the real world, Roanoke, Virginia, and the word Croatoan. Now, whatever happened to in the real Croatoan situation, nobody really knows. We have theories, but nothing's really ever been concretely proven. The idea that it's a demonic virus, and that it's the reason why an entire town could be completely wiped off the map of people. Such a fascinating idea. And the fact that it was also kind of Supernatural's answer to the zombie virus going around at the time, with zombie movies just being a kind of a viral outbreak. What could Supernatural do that was somewhat viral, but wasn't exactly a zombie thing? Well, we got demons, why not Croatoan? Now, I'm not saying that's exactly the ideas of the writers or creators behind Supernatural or the show itself and this episode itself, but it is interesting that in the realm of Supernatural, zombies didn't really have too much going on, and this was one of those episodes that, especially at this point in time, when you find out that it was kind of a test from the demons to see whether or not Sam could take this virus and survive and not be affected by it, that leaves you with even more questions than answers at that point in the season. Number 2, No Exit. I wish so badly that we would have gotten more hunts with the character of Joe, and to see that dynamic between Dean and Joe, more of that. It was such an interesting dynamic between those two characters, and just how it affected both of them when they were around each other, and it wasn't something that was hidden. It was out in the open for all of us to see. And No Exit was also another favorite of mine because, once again, it utilizes a real story of a real serial killer, H.H. Holmes, and it utilizes, well, for the story purposes, it of course utilizes his building, which still kind of has the corridors and still leads down to one of his rooms where he would do his deeds. And all of that, and the fact that they trap him down there so he can't continue his work, which is one of the things that makes a serial killer, that was such a cool thing. And he's just trapped, screaming down there. And then, of course, Dean comes in with the concrete truck to make sure that nothing can wash away the salt to let him continue his work. Don't feel sorry for that ghost at all. Deserves every bit of it to be trapped down there for the rest of time. Number 1, All Hell Breaks Loose Part 2. I loved All Hell Breaks Loose Part 1 and Part 2, but unfortunately, they are kind of separate episodes. Even though there's a Part 1 and a Part 2, Part 2, the true season finale of Season 2, had so much emotion and ran so high with intensity, you just didn't know what was going to happen next. After Part 1, when Sam gets stabbed in the back by Jake, and then Jake runs off and Dean and Bobby are left there with a corpse of Sam, you don't know what Dean's next move is, even though you, in the back of your head, you're going, is this why they introduced the Crossroads in this season? Well, obviously that's the answer, because Sam comes back after Dean makes a very terrible deal, but one that is filled with heart, to save Sam and bring him back. And the fact that it's also the episode where we're introduced to the Hell's Gate, and the cult is the key to opening the Hell's Gate, and to see all the spirits and the demons and everything when that door explodes open and it just snakes and serpentines all over the place with the black smoke. Such a cool effect, and always one that catches the eye and catches the interest of Supernatural fans or just people who love this kind of story. And it's also the episode where we finally get Sam and Dean taking on Azazel, Yellow-Eyed Demon, one final time, and they finally get their revenge for the killing of their mom, Mary Winchester, with the help of John Winchester. Such an incredible ending, to see Sam, Dean, and John there one last time. It was shot very differently, because they couldn't all be in the same area at the same time. So that's why, if you look at it real closely, the background is actually real fuzzy. But the important thing is what's happening in the foreground. The emotion on Sam's face, and the emotion on Dean's face, and the emotion on John's face. John, I believe, gets to go to heaven after this because he's crawled out of hell, and he's helped his boys get revenge on the thing that killed their mom. A great episode, a fun episode, but one that would charge up right off the bat everything for Season 3, which would become a pretty hard season for Dean fans. So, this will conclude my second episode of ranking my top 10 favorite Supernatural episodes. Season 3 will be coming out shortly as well. So, I thank you all so much for watching. Always remember to imagine your dream, create your happiness, and live your life on the edge. And I will see you in that next episode. See ya.